All right, y'all, welcome to the show. We got a big one today. So there's a fierce and explosive backlash from Israel and the U.S. to the ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu. We'll talk about that. Some wild things are being said, man. We'll also get to some new bombshell stories about the IDF killing a senior citizen American man and the Israeli government banning the Associated Press from doing their job, seizing their cameras, cutting their live feed. Then we get to Trump's brand new cult-like mega deranged ads. We'll get to an MSNBC host has turned on his own network and directly calls them out. That's fun. And Bill Maher versus Megyn Kelly later on, and then also me versus Jordan Peterson. So a lot of stuff to get to. Everybody do me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel. Hook a brother up with a sub. We're trying to get to that 10 million number. Going to be a while, but you build it one at a time. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. So as you all know, the other day, the International Criminal Court released some arrest warrants, or I should say they filed for some arrest warrants. Now, I believe it has to go through a judge first, but what we're looking at is some top Hamas officials and some top Israeli officials, including Yoav Gallant, who I believe is the defense minister, and Benjamin Netanyahu, who, of course, is the prime minister. So now, Benjamin Netanyahu, while he's been ducking interviews on Israeli TV, he's been running to U.S. media. So he goes and speaks to George Stephanopoulos here, and he says some things, man. I don't know how he gets away with this stuff. So he's, of course, going to come out swinging against the idea that there should be an arrest warrant against him. Let's watch and we'll break it down as we go.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the wake of the top prosecutor for the International Criminal Court seeking an arrest warrant that alleges war crimes in Gaza. I want to bring in the Prime Minister right now. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us this morning. You've been accused of using starvation as a weapon of war. I know you've called that decision by the prosecutors outrageous. The prosecutor responded to that yesterday. I want you to listen to what he had to say.
Israel has every right not to give succor to Hamas. That is not contested. Israel has every right and indeed an obligation to get hostages back. But you must do so by complying with the law. The fact that Hamas fighters need water doesn't justify denying water from all the civilian population of Gaza.
Your response?
Well, I think this is absurd. This is beyond outrageous. He said that we deny water. Yeah, and he's making a totally false accusation here and everywhere else. We are supplying now nearly half of the water of Gaza. We supplied only 7% before the war. So this is completely opposite of what he's saying. He's saying that we're starving people. You know, we have supplied 500,000 tons of food and medicine with 20,000 trucks. This guy is out to demonize Israel. He's doing a hit job. He's creating a false symmetry between the democratically elected leaders of Israel and the terrorist chieftains. That's like saying after 9/11, well, I'm issuing arrest warrants for George Bush, but also for bin Laden. Or after in World War II, well, I'm issuing arrest warrants for FDR, but also for Hitler. It's
okay. This guy, man, he's got some fucking balls on him. So the George W. Bush analogy, no. It's not like saying after 9/11, hey, we're going to issue some arrest warrants for George Bush. It's like saying after torture at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib, after illegal and offensive wars against countries that didn't attack us in Iraq and Afghanistan, after killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians and displacing millions, after violating 47 different international laws, it's like arresting Bush or doing an arrest warrant for Bush because of the Iraq war. That's what it is, which, by the way, should have been the case. Also should have been the case for Dick Cheney and a lot of the top administration officials. So, no, that analogy does not hold up. Nobody was saying on October 8th, that's it, arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. You did a genocide for months and months and months, and then finally it caught up with you. Now, by the way, to all this stuff about, bro, this is absurd. We're not keeping water from them. We're not keeping food from them. Then why is there a mountain of evidence as high as Mount Everest that says that's exactly what you're doing? Why are there countless reports that, and this was a long time ago too, Israel was blocking 70% of the humanitarian aid going in, and then when the International Court of Justice said, hey man, you guys can't do that, you guys started blocking even more of the aid from getting in. Why is that? Why are there reports on the ground of people in outright famine right now, and there are people who are dying who are as big as skeletons? They're bags of bones now. Why is that? So understand something. Benjamin Netanyahu's strategy and tactic to deal with stuff like this is just to lie. It's just to go out there and lie. Just go out there with, Israel, we have the most moral army on the planet, and we are actually a saintly military doing saintly things. Really? Then why are there 39,000 dead innocent civilians? kind of flies in the face of every single thing you say, doesn't it?
It's not serious. He's out to defame Israel, and he's also pouring gasoline on the fires of anti-Semitism.
Oh, my God. They literally have one move. They literally have one move. You're an anti-Semite, or you love Hamas. That's all they have. That's all they have. I've never seen a weaker line of attack in any conflict in human history than what we're seeing here.
Spreading around the world, because he is attacking the one and only Jewish state and trying to handcuff us, preventing us from exercising responsibly through the laws of war as we obey them and we are subordinate to them. He's saying we're not. He's creating false symmetry, false facts, and he's doing a grave injustice to the international court.
As you know, there is a serious food crisis in Gaza right now. Cindy McCain, head of the UN World Food Program, said parts of Gaza are undergoing full-blown famine.
Cindy McCain, John McCain's wife, you know, that massive dove anti-war hero, Cindy McCain, is like, oh, there's famine going on. If Cindy McCain is saying there's famine, what do you think it's actually like on the ground?
Do you acknowledge that under international law, Israel has a legal obligation to prevent people in Gaza from starving?
Well, we certainly have an obligation to enable trucks to go in, and as I said, we've enabled 20,000 trucks to go in. We just fixed the roadbeds to...
So dishonest, so disingenuous. Like I said, they're blocking over 70% of the trucks. And he acts like, bro, we're allowing everything in.
Well, those trucks to go in, and 500,000 tons of food and drugs. So who's stopping this? In fact, Hamas is the one that is looting these trucks while we're enabling them to go in. We don't have a deliberate starvation diet. We don't policy. In fact, we have the opposite policy, to allow maximum humanitarian aid to get people out of harm's way while Hamas is doing everything to keep them in harm's way at gunpoint. And in fact, we've sent millions of text messages.
By the way, we've pointed this out before. There are 30,000 Hamas members. There are 2.3 million people in Gaza. Even theoretically, logistically, it would be impossible for 30,000 to take all of the food and all of the water and hide it from their population and not dispense it to their population. Again, their arguments are beyond weak, but wait, we're going to get to a really juicy moment here in a second. Buckle up for this one.
Calls, leaflets to people, doing something that no army and no government has done in modern urban warfare. Giving up the element of surprise, telling people, get out of harm's way, and let us finish the war against the terrorists. We're not targeting the population, we're targeting the terrorists. These are fallacious charges. I think that they cast a terrible stain on the ICC, but I think serious countries...
The stain that's cast is on Israel right now, and everybody knows that, and nobody's buying your bullshit. We drop pamphlets stuff now. When you have 39,000 innocent civilians who've been killed, 16,000 kids who've been killed, 10,000 women who've been killed, the idea that you guys, bro, we're being really careful and specific. Are you kidding me? There was a number of exposés about the nature of the programs that these guys use to determine who to kill. One of them is called, I believe it's Where's Daddy or Daddy's Home? Something like that. And what they do is they wait for alleged Hamas fighters, to go home and be with their wives and kids, and then they purposefully blow up the home with the wife and the kids in it. Oh, yeah, we're really humanitarian and we really care. Shut up.
Are not taking them seriously. And I was very glad to see that President Biden called them outrageous, as did many leaders, bipartisan support across the United States. And people are...
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. Bipartisan support for your fucking genocidal maniac position. Bipartisan support. You want to know why? Because not only are people in the U.S., politicians in the U.S., I should say, ideological Zionists, they're also totally corrupted by AIPAC and DMFI and the Israel lobby.
Putting a bill in Congress, a bipartisan bill, to put sanctions on the ICC prosecutor for doing such a terrible singling out of Israel. Really, really a distortion and a travesty of justice.
Are you concerned about traveling in the wake of this arrest warrant?
Should be, bitch.
No, I'm not concerned about traveling. I'm not concerned at all about our status. I think that the prosecutor should be concerned about his status, because...
I'm not concerned at all about our status, but the prosecutor should be concerned about his status. Is that a threat? Is that a threat from the guy who just killed 39,000 innocent civilians? From the guy who's been carpet bombing toddlers? From the guy who's been purposefully starving the civilian population of millions of people of Gaza? Is that a threat? I'm not concerned. He should be concerned. Guys, just so everybody understands, the person who brought the charges at the International Criminal Court, this was the pick of the U.S. and Israel. And even he looked at it and was like, what am I supposed to do here? You guys are acting like Nazis. I have no choice. You've twisted my arm. I'm in a corner. I have to charge you. And now he's doing veiled threats. Okay, let's keep it going. Speaker Mike Johnson confirms a vote to sanction the ICC is under consideration over the Netanyahu arrest warrant application. Congress is reviewing all options, including sanctions, to punish the ICC and ensure its leadership faces consequences if they proceed. And then this person here says, I don't know if people are fully conscious what is being announced here is also a crime under the ICC statute. By the way, in U.S. law already is the idea that if we don't like what these international organizations are doing, we invade them. We invade them. So in other words, what we're saying is law of the jungle. Might makes right. We have all the power. We get to do what we want. That's the law, because we've decided that's the law. Fuck your rules-based international order. Fuck human rights. Fuck the liberal world order, or whatever sort of euphemism you want to use to talk about this nonsense. The U.S. position and the Israeli position is, fuck you, we get to do what we want. And now, again, they are using legal threats. This is lawfare against the head of the ICC. Look at this. So this is Joe Biden's reaction. Outrageous. U.S. President Joe Biden condemns bid to have Israeli PM Netanyahu arrested over Gaza war. Now, rewind to 2023 when we're talking about Vladimir Putin. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomes ICC's war crimes charges against Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Oh, interesting. So when they're the official enemy, we love the ICC. They're doing a great job. When they're one of our allies, how dare they? Guys, let's be clear. It is not about the principle. It is not about the law. It is not about justice. It is not about doing the right thing. Who's our ally? Who's our enemy? And we'll adjust accordingly. If you do even worse crimes, but you're our ally, you're good to go. So I'm going to give you some more of what Biden said about this.
Let me be clear. We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Whatever these warrants may imply, there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas.
They never said that. They never said that. Their job is to determine, are people war criminals? Are they violating international law? That's their job. It just so happens to be the case that Hamas leaders violated international law and Israel violated international law. So they're doing their job. And how do they flip it? They go, you're doing a false equivalence. Well, it's certainly not a false equivalence if there is evidence of both Hamas and Israel doing war crimes. That's not a false equivalence. That's an actual equivalence. But they never said, hey, we are comparing these two. They never did that. They're just doing their job and upholding the law.
And it's clear Israel wants to do all it can to ensure civilian protection. But let me be clear. Contrary to allegations against Israel made by the International Court of Justice, what's happening is not genocide. We reject that.
So he says that, but then Ben-Gvir or Smotrich or any other top Israeli government official comes out and they're like, we are doing genocide. We are doing ethnic cleansing. We are going to resettle all of Gaza. We are going to starve them. So you say this, and then 2.5 seconds later, the Israeli government contradicts you. And you never come out and say, you know what? Hey, man, they're saying the opposite. I guess I'm wrong. You never do that. This is so pathetic. You're tanking your own presidency by hitching your wagon to a moral black hole like Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right Likud party freaks? Jesus Christ, man. All right, so Lindsey Graham, listen to what happens here. This is actually kind of funny.
So we, hopefully, together will find a way to register our displeasure with the ICC, because if they'll do this to Israel, we're next. This group tried to come after our soldiers. Yeah, you can clap all you want to. They tried to come after our soldiers in Afghanistan, but reason prevailed. So at the end,
he's like, man, if they do this to Israel, we're next. And then you got a bunch of people in the audience who were like, fuck yeah, bro. Let's get your dumb ass too. All you war criminals. Lindsey Graham was on TV last week talking about we should nuke Gaza. Look in the mirror, son. You're the baddie. There's no doubt about it. This is not a man who thinks in terms of principles or law or justice. This is a man who thinks I do whatever the fuck I want and you do what I tell you to. So, yeah, I would love justice to be upheld across the board. I would love that. I would love George W. Bush and Dick Cheney in particular to go down for their various war crimes. He makes it seem like, oh, that'd be a terrible thing. It'd be the best thing that ever happened. To know that international law actually means something. That powerful people can be held accountable. That the military-industrial complex doesn't get away with whatever the fuck they want to get away with for profit. That would be good to know. All right. So, this is a really crazy moment. You have the head of the ICC. He's going to come out and say what a top American official said to him. Look at how grotesque this perspective is from the American official who was talking to the head of the ICC.
dignity of the individual is the protection of babies. I mean, these are fundamental American values that should engender bipartisan support. Now, of course, this situation, unfortunately, lies on the San Andreas fault of international politics and strategic interests. And of course, I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me. We don't view it like that. This court is the legacy of Nuremberg. This court is a sad indictment of humanity. This court should be the triumph of law over power and brute force. Grab what you can, take what you want, do what you will. And we're going to simply be, we're not going to be dissuaded by threats or any other activities, because in the end we have to fulfill our responsibilities as prosecutors, as the men and women of the office, as judges, as the registry.
So according to him, a top American official came to him and said, "What are you doing? This court was built to go after African leaders. This court was built to go after people like Putin." What an astonishing thing to admit. What an astonishing thing to admit. Us and our allies, by definition, no matter what we do, no matter how off the rails it is, no matter how aggressive and illegal it is, we get a pass. Because we set up this international framework of law and order, so we get to violate it whenever we want. And our goal is to target tin pot dictators in Africa and pretend like we're standing up for justice and rule of law and things of that nature. Holy shit, man. By the way, the track record of the ICC before this, it's actually true. Adam Johnson from FAIR talks about this all the time. Something like 20 some odd charges were brought for various heads of state, and all of them were African leaders. But now, this guy feels like he's put in a position where we can't look the other way. This isn't a little violation of the law here or there. This is an outright genocide being armed and funded by the U.S., and it's being perpetrated by Benjamin Netanyahu. We can't look the other way, or else this thing is a complete and utter farce. We don't have the veneer of seriousness anymore if we don't act. What a stunning thing. By the way, the speculation from Ryan Grimm is that it was Lindsey Graham who met with this guy relatively recently. And he thinks it's Lindsey Graham who said this to him, which, by the way, would fit perfectly. Okay. Speaking of, here's Lindsey. The decision by the ICC to issue an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin is a giant step in the right direction for the international community. It is more than justified by the evidence. This, and now on Netanyahu, this outrageous decision is truly a slap in the face to the independent judiciary in Israel, which is renowned for their independence. I will be issuing detailed statement regarding the outrageous actions by the ICC against the state of Israel, and I will feverishly work with colleagues on both sides of the aisle in both chambers to levy damning sanctions against the ICC. Interesting. So when talking about Vladimir Putin, you notice that line about evidence? Hey man, this is more than justified by the evidence. When talking about Netanyahu, weird, there's no line there about evidence. There's no line there about evidence. It's almost like there's a tremendous amount of evidence for it, and so you're just dodging the question of evidence completely, and you're just, this is outrageous. I am wagging my finger at you for doing the thing that is obviously correct. All right, and then we got this, man. The Biden administration signals it will support a bipartisan push to sanction the ICC. So look, understand something, guys. The post-World War II global framework of international law and human rights and justice, and on paper, having recourse for egregious violations, that is now, it's now being threatened. Like, as a tweet I saw said, you can now have the grad students write their papers. That's like, international law system, 1945 to 2024, right? Like, we're witnessing an extinction level event for having any semblance of civilization. Right? If in this fight the U.S. and Israel win, then we are 100%, in no uncertain terms, back to the notion of the wild, wild west and might makes right, and the superpowers and the imperial powers, they get to do whatever they want, and you can piss off if you don't like it. Like, we don't even have the veneer of seriousness or respectability or civilization anymore if Israel and the U.S. win out in this fight. Look, I don't know about you guys, but to me, that sounds devastating. Because ideally what we do is we have this framework of international law and justice, and then we apply it objectively and consistently and fairly. That's the world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world where the superpower gets to do whatever the fuck they want to do and there's no consequences, or our satellite countries get to do whatever they want to do and there's no consequences. Because, look, stop and think about it. What happens in a scenario where we already know the sun is setting on the American empire? We already know we're rotting from within. We already know we're witnessing imperial decline. Okay, what happens when China is the next superpower? Right? Do we want to live in a world where there is no UN, there is no International Court of Justice, there is no International Criminal Court, there's none of any of this. We do what we want, and you can fuck off. Do you want to live in that world? Do you want to live in that world where there's no recourse if a powerful nation decides to carpet bomb your entire town or city and all your family members die? You want to live in a world where there's no recourse, where you can't bring the criminals to justice? This is the world that the Israel and the U.S. are desperately trying to bring about. They're trying to destroy the post-World War II global framework. Whereas my perspective is we should have perfected that framework and actually upheld the laws and the rules. Look, it's a low point. It's a low point for both the U.S. and Israel. There's no doubt about it. As I tweeted the other day, I mean, I've never been more disgusted with my country. And that's fully understanding and respecting the fact that we had the Iraq War era and the war on terror and the illegal torture and the killing of civilians and the displacement and all that stuff. All that stuff is real. All that stuff is horrible. And it was my own political awakening. Right now, there's a genocide going on. It's a literal genocide. And I think on some level, everybody knows it's a genocide. And the people who are desperately trying to fight back to stop it, they're the ones who are getting smeared, called anti-Semites, called pro-Hamas, being threatened with sanctions. And this is happening under a Democratic administration. And you know what the Republican perspective is? You know what the Trump perspective is? You guys are being too harsh on Israel. You guys are pro-Hamas. You guys are anti-Semites. You need to suck Israel off even more. You need to tell the International Criminal Court to fuck off even more. This is what's going on? It is. And it's gross. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.